What's going on, you guys? You're tuned into the Cutting Room Knife Review. I'm your host, Garrett, and today we're taking a look at the Spyderco Shaman. Now, what we're doing today is what I like to call a model overview. And what a model overview is where I take a look at a knife that isn't necessarily new to the market. It isn't necessarily something that you haven't heard of. It's probably something that you know. You might know it very well. But I like taking these extra special, classic, all-time models and going over them in kind of a deep dive to reacquaint our brains with these knives, why they're special, why they've been around for so long, and why they really still belong in our collections. What's up, guys? I'm Garrett. You're tuned in to the Cutting Room Knife Review, where I review knives, blades, and all things sharp. Please like and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more killer knife content. Now, this knife was not spawned because I really wanted a Spyderco Shaman. Well, it was, but let me reiterate. You see, I had a Spyderco Shaman and it wasn't this knife. And I used it and I loved it. And it was a knife that I got early on in my collecting of knives. And what the Spyderco Shaman is one of the larger of the Spyderco knives that is fairly popular. In fact, this is probably the most popular of what I would call a larger size Spyderco knife. Now, it's not the biggest Spyderco knife. It's not the craziest Spyderco knife, but of all the hard use, large Spyderco knives with bigger blades, heavier knives, what I would consider a bigger carry, the Shaman is the most popular by far, hands down. Now, I had a Shaman and I really loved it. But as I grew as a knife collector, I found this knife maker, REK Knives, and what he does a lot of times, other than make his own, production knives and his own custom knives, is he makes reblades for knives. And one of the best reblades he does is a Spyderco Shaman reblade. Now, I ended up finally getting my hands on one of these, and these are very hard to get, exclusive, fairly expensive knives. And I absolutely love it. This is the Spyderco Shaman Reblade by REK Knives. So this isn't much of a Shaman anymore, it turns out. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the blade is not a Shaman. The scales are not a Shaman. The clip no longer is a Shaman. What we have here is just basically the frame and the lock and the hardware. So, really, this is like, if you imagine like a NASCAR and you have the shell, it starts off as a, Chevy, Malibu or Monte Carlo or a Toyota Corolla. And you take all the pieces apart, but you leave the bare basics of the frame, but you turn the rest of it into a race car. Well, that's what this is. It's the bare basic frame of a Shaman that we've turned into a Grail knife. Now, I love this knife. And next week, I'm going to be doing an episode reviewing this knife in particular. But what I realized was I still love the Shaman. I still love where that knife came from. I didn't have one of these anymore because I donated the knife to become this knife. And I missed it. I missed it, not because I didn't like my new REK Reblade, but because the original Shaman is a really good knife. And I love it for hard use. I love beating on it. I love abusing it. It takes the abuse. It takes you can really use it for hard, work, hard use, taken to the job site. It'll basically take any abuse, any hard use you want to throw at it. And I didn't have one anymore. And I missed it and I missed it. I missed it from my collection. And I realized that two things. One, I needed to have one back in my collection. And secondly, if I was going to explain to you guys what this knife was, which is so special in my collection, this is one of my top 3 favorite knives of all time. If I'm going to show you this Grail knife of mine, I need to be able to explain to you guys where it came from, what started this knife, like what the beginning of it was. And if I didn't start from the beginning, which is this knife's story couldn't be told. So here we are today with a model overview of the Spyderco Shaman. So let's get into the specifications and measurements of the Spyderco Shaman and break down just what this knife is and what it's made out of. So the Spyderco Shaman is a larger size Spyderco knife. Now the overall length of the Shaman is 8.25 or 8.25 inches. We have a handle length of 4.67 inches and a blade length of 3.58 inches. Now, this knife comes in a little bit over what I would call a comfortable everyday carry because, as I say in every episode, I tend to like between 7 and 8 inches overall with a 3 to 3.5 inch blade. Now, this knife is a 1/4 inch over that scale of measurement. The blade that is not even 1/10 of an inch over that measurement. So really, it's on the larger size of what I like to carry, but I truly find this knife to be a very comfortable everyday carry. If you like carrying heavy duty knives, this really doesn't feel that big. There's a lot bigger knives that I'm actually comfortable carrying than this knife. This knife just is robust. It is very just hardy and strong. It's just built to take on abuse and hard work. The designer of this knife is Sal Glesser, the creator and owner of Spyderco, and he does such a good job taking models and really turning them into, bigger and better things. So he took the native series and just made it big. That's basically what this knife is. If you're used to a native model Spyderco, you're going to be comfortable using the Shaman. The Shaman is basically an XL size native in most aspects, especially the blade. Now, the blade thickness of the Shaman is 0.145 inches. So we have a pretty thick stock of steel right here. It is completely flat ground and stays pretty thick all the way towards the tip. It is a strong knife. You are not going to beat this blade up easily. It is a knife that really can take a beating. Now, it does go flat just a little bit right near the very top right here, but for the most part, the whole thing is a flat grind. Now, the blade edge of the Shaman is going to be 3.12 inches. So we get a good amount of edge on this knife. We have a finger choil that is half the scale, half the knife, and it's a real comfortable place to put our hands. It is definitely where I like putting my hand on the Spyderco Shaman. We have really strong jimping up here on the spine of the knife. And we have, of course, a nested liner that has the Spyderco compression lock on it. Now, the Shaman, in this case, is CPM S45VN, and that is a Smoky Mountain Knife Works exclusive. I got the DLC version of this knife. I believe that this knife actually only comes in a DLC coated blade. Now, the Shaman originally, or the base model, comes in CPM 30V, CPM S30V, I'm sorry, and black G10 scales. All of the other models of the Shaman, except for the supposed lightweight Shaman, which really isn't that lightweight, come in a micarta scale with a different blade steel. Now, we have many different colors of micarta scale, and they all correspond to a different blade steel. The different blade steels that the Shaman has been released in are, of course, the base model of S30V from Crucible. We also have CPM S45VN, this knife. We have CPM S90V. We have CPM 15V, CPM Rex 45, CPM Crewwear, CPM Spy 27, which is, of course, the Spyderco only steel. It's a Spyderco exclusive steel that Crucible made just for Spyderco, which is very close to, it's kind of a in between CPM 30V and CPM 35VN, being a little closer to 35VN. Most people say I'm not the biggest steel expert in the world, but it's a great steel. It's a great all around steel. I'd say it's like a step behind the CPM S45VN. Now we also have it in CPM M4, and then we also have some Carpenter steels such as CTS BDN1, which is what the lightweight Shaman has been released in. And that is going to actually have a different handle material. I believe it's a FRN. Don't get me wrong. It's not a Micarta scale. Future me, look that up. And then we also have CTS 204P, which I believe is a River's Edge cutlery with the avocado knife, if you guys know what that is. And then we also have CTS XHP. It has recently been released in Bowler M390 with the pumpkin spice, the orange Micarta scales, and it was also released in Z-Wear. I don't believe I am missing any steels, but if I am, please comment down below and let me know if there's a sprint run Shaman or a release Shaman that I have missed. Now, the weight of the Shaman is 5.2 ounces, which is honestly not the heaviest knife. This does feel like a pretty substantial knife. The Shaman is not a lightweight knife. You're not going to lose it in your pocket, though it is not honestly that huge in your pocket. It's a pretty big knife, but I don't seem to mind it. I like to carry this knife. I like kind of knowing a knife is in my pocket when I'm using it. I know I'm not going to lose it. I know it's not going to fall out. And it just reminds me that it's there. It's almost like a comfort blanket to me, if you will. Now, the Shaman has been released in many DLC or different coatings. It also has been released in satin finishes or plain blade finishes. It has the Spidey hole on it, and they tend to have really good action. A lot of them have to be tuned or, kind of broken in for a good drop action. It's not the easiest Spyderco just to get to drop right out of the box, but with a little tuning and a little working in the washers, excuse me, as most Spydercos run on washers, and this is no exception, it will end up getting really, really good classic Spyderco action to it. Now, one complaint about the Spyderco Shaman is that this little nub right here tends to bump people in the finger when they drop the knife. It comes through right here next to the compression lock, and a lot of people complain that bugs them, that it comes through and bumps them. I've never cared the least bit about it, but you'll hear that as a complaint every once in a while. It's kind of a design flaw. It doesn't happen really on any other Spyderco knives, and just the Shaman's the only one that you really kind of get that bump where it hits your finger. It's happened. I've had one of these for so long, it doesn't bother me. It feels kind of like normal. Now, the Spyderco Shaman is one of the few knives, along with the Bodacious, that has a different pattern for the clip. For some reason, they have the clip pattern on the Shaman that is a different triangle than a traditional closer triangle on all the other models. And yes, I know I've never adjusted this PM2 to carry tip up. It's carrying tip down. Yuck. I'm gross. I'm a terrible person. I should go to knife jail. Blah, blah, blah. Somebody's going to catch me on it and call me on it. So I'm just going to get ahead of that. So anyway, the Shaman does carry tip up. The reason that the Spyderco PM2 is tip down, the way I have it is this is how it comes from the factory. I've just never adjusted this knife. So that's the basic specifications of this knife. It has pretty much a pretty thick body, has a pretty thick blade. It has a really good edge to the blade. It is a typical Spyderco leaf shape, kind of drop point leaf shape to the blade. Has a nice choil on it for your fingers so you can choke up on it. Really nice micarta scales. You can get other scales from AWT to Aramis, Akhmedov scales. There's lots of different ways you can rock your Shaman. But I actually, as far as Spyderco scales go, I think the Shaman, especially the sprint runs and the nicer micarta Shamans, this is one of the nicer scales that Spyderco puts out. It's one of the most ergonomic scales and comfortable feeling scales that they have. I'm a big fan of this gray micarta on this S45VN Shaman, but there's lots of different colors to choose from with lots of different steels. You can go a lot of different routes with your Shaman. If you can find the different steels on the secondhand market, there's a lot to choose from. But currently, I think we're working with M390, S45VN, CPM30V, of course, Spy 27. And if I'm not sure if you could be so lucky as to find a 15V anymore. You're going to probably pay a lot of money for that. But I think those are what we're working with right now. Maybe the BDN one if the lightweight's around. But that's basically the Spyderco Shaman. The measurements, the specifications of the knife. It's a heavy duty, larger Spyderco, but it's one that I really like and I think is really comfortable in the hand. Now let's compare the Spyderco Shaman to some other knives and talk about its lineage. So, like all reviews, I start off comparing all knives, including the Spyderco Shaman, to, you guessed it, the Para 3. So this is the Spyderco Para 3. I have this one in Aramis Akhmedov scales. So this is one of my absolute favorite Spydercos in my collection right now. And these are two matching DLC CPM S45VN blades. I think these are some of the best looking Spydercos. These DLC blades. I love CPM S45VN. It's such a good steel. It's an older super steel. It's helped, Crucible made it along with, I believe, Chris Reeve. And Chris Reeve originally helped make S30V, then S35VN, and then S45VN. And S45VN was kind of like the culmination of that series of knives. Has amazing edge retention, takes an absolute razor's edge, laser beam of an edge. It's a durable steel. It's fairly corrosion resistant. And when you put a DLC coating on it, it's going to be completely corrosion resistant. You're not going to have any corrosion issues with S45VN. It's going to be tough enough for you to do heavy work with, and it's going to just keep a really amazing edge. It's one of my absolute favorite steels. It's kind of considered an older, not that exciting steel anymore, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And it's one of the best lower priced steels you can get from Spyderco. You're going to pay a lot for like the specialty steels like Rex 45 or Maximet or 15V, but the S45VN, you're going to get a ton of performance out of it for not much more than you would pay for the standard base S30V steel. Now, comparing it to the Paramilitary 2, The Shaman is a little bit bigger than the Paramilitary 2. It's a little bit longer, just a little bit. Has a pretty similar edge to it. Basically, you're getting the same amount of edge as you would on a Paramilitary 2, just got a little bit bigger of a blade, a little bit bigger of a handle, pretty close to the same size handle, but you're just a slightly bigger knife than the Paramilitary 2. Now, one of another really good hard use knife that has a pretty similar blade shape to it is going to be the Manix 2. I kind of find the Manix 2 is a little bit more of a delicate knife than the Shaman. The Shaman's a little bit beefier, like a step up in hard use from the Manix 2. They have pretty similar blade shapes, not completely similar, but pretty similar. The Manix 2 is you're going to be able to do a little bit more detail work with it. I think you're going to be able to like really kind of hard use the Shaman a little bit more than the Manix 2. I think the Manix 2 is like a really happy medium for a lot of knives, whereas the Shaman is going to be, on the hard use side of the Spyderco knives. Now, the cousin or the biggest competitor to the Shaman is going to be the Bodacious. And the Bodacious is kind of like the more radical sibling of the Shaman. It's newer. It's got a few little differences in it. The main difference is the Shaman has the blade, the choil in the blade. The Shaman or the Bodacious does not. The Bodacious has a little bit more edge to it. The Bodacious not been released in nearly as many steels as the Shaman has. The Bodacious's handle, in my opinion, is a little less ergonomic than the Shaman's handle is. And then I believe the thickness of the blade is, yes, it is less on the Bodacious. It's a little bit thinner of a blade, a little bit slicier than the Shaman. The Shaman is going to be a little bit more heavy use than the Bodacious. But these two are very, very similar knives. They are competitors, in my opinion, in the lineup. Some people are going to love the Bodacious. Some people are going to love the Shaman. You can be like me and love them both. They're very similar knives, very similar carries. I use them for similar things. When I want a heavy use, larger knife, and it's a Spyderco, I turn to either of these. Typically, when it needs to be heavier use, I go to the Shaman. When it needs to be a little bit more delicate, or just I want a little bit more blade edge to it, I go with the Bodacious. And finally, we have the Native 5. And what the Native 5 is essentially the little sibling to the Shaman. This is basically a sized down Shaman. Now, the Native 5, of course, has a backlock on it. Why they threw a backlock on the Native 5 and not the little Native or the Shaman is beyond me. I kind of wish they had put a compression lock on the Native 5, but they just didn't. But other than that, these knives operate very similar. You look at the handle shape, it's the same. This is just bigger. Look at the blade shape. Essentially, this is pretty close to the same, just bigger. When you're looking down the knives like this, they look a lot alike. Just one is bigger than the other. So if you need to do delicate work, but you want basically the same feel of a knife, the Native 5, the Shaman, of course, is the big brother to it. Now, of course, the Native 5 has been around much longer than the Shaman. The Shaman came to us in 2017. The Native has been around a whole lot longer than that. Basically, I believe Sal just wanted to make a bigger version of the Native, and this turned into the big brother of the Native. And as you can see, it is just going to do the same heavy-duty, hard work the Native does, just in a large size package. So, finally, my thoughts. I mean, you pretty much heard my thoughts over this review. It is a heavy-duty knife. It is a extra large size Native 5, essentially, with a compression lock. It has pretty good action to it, fidgets nicely. I can sit here and flick this thing all day long. It is really comfortable in my hands. I like it choked up personally. You don't have to choke it up. It's big enough to hold back here, but I think that feels really funky. I like choking this choking up onto the choil of this blade. It has really nice jimping, just like the Native 5 does right here. It is very strong and gripped into my hand. I'm not losing this knife anywhere. It is one of my favorite heavy duty Spydercos. And I just love this knife. And if you are a Spyderco fan or you need a knife that is heavy duty, I'd highly suggest taking a look at the Shaman. For its price range of just a little bit over $200, you're getting a whole lot of a heavy duty knife. You really are. And it's got a lot of amenities like the scales being micarta. Sorry, I could not remember the word micarta there for a second. The scales being micarta, it has a nicer feel to it than many Spydercos do. I like this a lot better than G10. There's not many Spyderco scales that I enjoy more than the Shaman scales are, and you have a lot of aftermarket scales. So this is an all-time classic Spyderco. It's been around for almost 10 years. I don't see it going anywhere. It's incredibly popular for its size. I don't think there's any other really bigger Spyderco knife, heavy-duty Spyderco knife that is more popular than this. Certainly not the Manix 2XL. I don't think the Bodacious is more popular than this by any means. And it's a knife that I gave away. I gave into a knife that a reblade that is actually my favorite knife, but I like this knife so much I had to bring it back and buy another one. Just put a stock one of these into my collection because it is just that good. And I missed it that much. Now, next week, we will be checking out the REK Shaman Reblade. And we take this $200 knife and turn it into a over $1,000 knife. And they are different, but it's like you took the spirit and the soul of this knife and turned it into an absolute grail knife, an absolute beast of a hollow ground Vanek super clean blade, Aris Akhmedov scaled, just monster. This has the soul of my old Shaman in it, but it is a totally new hot rod beast of a knife. Now, we'll get into this knife, but now that you have the background and history of this knife, I'll be able to tell the REK Shaman story that much better. So, I'm Garrett for the Cutting Room Knife Review. This has been a model overview of the Spyderco Shaman. Till next time, you guys, stay sharp.